Raj and DK, welcome to The Hindu.
Thank you.
So guys, just like it's very strange to watch a Quentin Tarantino film without a shot of women's feet, it was very strange for me to watch Guns Gulaabs without the most enduring Raj and DK motif, which is the mobile phone. How strange was it for you guys to build a show in a time when there were no mobile phones at all?
It was a core idea. The core idea is to take out the mobile phone and see how the world and the plot and characters act. So that was one of the biggest things in Guns Gulaabs. If you put the phone, mobile phone in any scene, most scenes, it'll just drop. There is no scene there. Okay. So it's awesome to actually go the other way and not do your mobiles at all and still make and get so much out of it. Right. That's a good observation though.
Were there phones on set?
Oh, there were a lot of phones on set. And the biggest problem was sometimes when you have extras in the scene walking around, in a regular film, if some of your extras are walking around and they have a phone in their pocket that's visible, or if you see them on the phone, it's not a problem. Right. But in this show, you have to cut the shot and tell them not to do it. Right. For obvious reasons. It's set in an era where there was no mobile phones. And of all the big differences between, say, 1990 and 2023, I think the most impactful difference would be, like you pointed out, the mobile phone.
Right.
But I wish we had implemented that no phones thing. We experienced that life again. Because that would have been great. It would have been very, we wouldn't have been as efficient in the shoot.
It occurs to me, I mentioned Tarantino and he's someone who actually bans phones on his set.
Yeah, no, I think we should. Because I think any movie for that matter, lately I'm seeing that put the phones away. So because everybody on the set, what is their biggest passion in life? Movies. Right. They're all waiting to be on the set.
So true.
And once you're on the set, you're again off it because you're on the phone all the time. So I think that's a good idea. I think we should start implementing it.
In general, we should. Except for the people who are working on the phone, of course, because I think today most of the work happens on the phone.
That's true.
Like if I take away your phone, your productivity has dropped today.
Maybe we should keep it out of the set.
Yeah.
But anyway, good idea.
Fair enough. I want to backtrack a little bit. Were you guys out of college in the early 90s? Had you guys moved to the US? Which part of life were you guys in the early 90s?
Yeah, we were,
no, basically late 90s, we were in the
school.
Went to the US.
So early 90s was college.
90 was the time when we were in school. And,
Right.
So we were like, that's why the era has a special meaning for us. That this is the era where, we are also going through, at least if you look at the school children's track, that's what we were going through around that time. Yeah.
So taking back a little bit, what kind of pop culture were you guys consuming at the time? I know you guys watched Telugu widely and a lot of Hollywood widely. How much of Hindi cinema?
Hollywood widely because they were only, in the small town, there was actually only one theater that played English movies.
Right.
I.S. Mahal.
I.S. Mahal, yeah. So it was only the biggest films that used to come, like First Blood, Rambo, Die Hard. Like none of the more niche or, dramatic films. We didn't have the fortune of watching them.
Yeah.
Chhattis Kamra of Shaolin didn't figure in.
Sorry?
Chhattis Kamra of Shaolin.
That was like even before, I think it was like early 80s. But
It keeps coming back into theaters, right? It was timeless for us. We all discovered Kung Fu in that time.
Correct.
Like that. But mainly it was a lot of consumption of Telugu cinema. Quite a bit of Tamil and Malayalam that are dubbed into Telugu. And always waiting for the next film to change in the I.S. Mahal so that we can go and watch the next English film. Of course, all these bootleg tapes is what, you were DVDs and stuff.
VCR.
DVDs and, VCR,
VHS.
DVD, we
DVD
both
was
saw.
Not there in 90.
Yeah.
DVD was late 90s.
Yeah.
And mixtapes. The original idea of music was from mixtapes, where you sit down and actually put all your favorites in it. So these were the main influences, I guess, and of course magazines. We used to read Sports Illustrated to India Today to whatever, that point. Blitz and all these were the just Blitz.
Just Blitz. Right.
There was one magazine called Frontline.
Right.
Frontline was Hindu.
Does it still exist?
It is. It's around. Yeah. Okay. Hindi films? What sort of Hindi films?
Hindi films, again, the big ones used to come. In those days, there were really only big ones. I mean, that went around.
That would be like the early Amir Khans or like.
Amir Khan's and Shahenshah and Khuda
Amitabh
Gawa.
Bachchan films used to come, and all the big films, Jitendra films, they all used to come.
Is there a particularly distinct memory you guys have of a Hindi film on the big screen back then?
I remember Jo Jeeta Wahi Sikandar making an impact
Yeah.
on a big screen. There was a lot of excitement. I wasn't very clued in on the stardom of the actors at that point.
They were not stars. I don't think like Amir Khan was a big star yet.
He was already with the Qayamat.
Qayamat, only one film.
But it was really one of those refreshing films where it wasn't really the typical masala fare, it felt like, because there was college, there was sports, there was romance. So that I remember vividly in Hyderabad watching on Sandhya 70mm or something like that, where, watching this big screen spectacle.
Bazigar and Dar were two
Yes.
films that I
Right.
was blown away. First by Bazigar, because the protagonist being a bad guy just
Right.
is not something you see,
Right.
and there is this new actor called Shah Rukh Khan, you could say at that time, and you're just starting to like him. I think I've seen Shah Rukh Khan in Fauji television here and there,
Yeah.
but suddenly he's like a new person on the screen, and the whole country was in love with him.
Right.
And even in Dar, he was always playing these anti-hero roles. I think they both came in the same year, give or take.
Yes, both the same year. Anjam, I think a year before. or
Anjam was
after.
also in the same
around that
phase.
same
So
time.
he had this trend of
Trend of three
anti-hero
films
movies.
anti-hero films.
Yeah.
And that must have affected the psychology in small towns, right? That was very un-Hindi cinema, for that time to do.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
both
was.
the roles. Which
Nobody
Shah
would
Rukh
have
was
guessed
taking.
that. Nobody can at that point guess the stardom of Shah Rukh Khan.
Correct.
Much later, but around that time. Yeah.
Right. There's a Desmond Bagley nod in the show. I wondered what sort of novels were you guys also reading at
The
the
Golden Keel.
Golden Key. Right.
Yeah, we used to read a lot of these English novels back then. Alistair MacLean and Frederick Forsyth and Robert Ludlum and
So
Desmond
thrillers,
Bagley
more
and all these
paperback thrillers.
novels.
mostly.
There used to be a lending library exactly like the one in
Right.
the show. So where you go and you rent these books out, read it over 2-3 days, and return.
We had a lending library concept even in Stree.
Yes. Yeah, that's a.
Of course, this one is the more true representation of the libraries that we used to rent from. And that was a little more esoteric, a little more strange.
I wonder what kind of comics poured down back then? Did you get the American comics over there? Or were there local comics? I know South has a culture of local comics as well. What sort of comics?
But it was always, at least for us, I think, because we were reading English comics. They were the parallel Telugu books and short stories and all these things. I wasn't too much clued into it, but you had Amar Chitrakatha. That was the staple. Amar Chitrakatha.
They gave us all the history we wanted, right? At the end of it. All the history we know, our foundation of our history is from Amar Chitrakatha, right?
Amar
All kinds
Chitrakatha,
of
Tinkle.
history,
and,
mythology.
Yeah, Chandamama.
Right.
And of course,
Phantom was big, right?
Indrajal Comics.
Phantom,
Indrajal Comics had
Indrajal,
Phantom and Mandrake and Bahadur, and that was.
But I think the bigger ones that influenced us in terms of humor, even now, I feel when we look back, is Asterix. Asterix and Tintin became really the fodder.
Correct.
Somewhere in
Tintin is
the
full of
violence,
humor.
in the way action is done. I think there's a bit of Asterix more than Tintin.
Asterix is there. Also, there were a lot more Asterix comics around. I mean, even to this day, if you look at the number of Tintin comics, there's, I don't remember, maybe 25 to 30 comics. That's all there is. So Tintin is a very limited edition thing. Yeah. But Asterix, there were way more of those.
Yeah.
When did you guys and Suman start working on Guns and Gulaabs? I know you guys take a while till idea stews and sort of comes together. How far back did this show go, and what were the initial things that you guys wanted to play with?
We play with a lot of ideas. There's always a bunch of ideas, almost a dozen ideas that are always swirling in the head. And one day we talk of one story, one day we talk another story. So some just drop off, some just stay on forever, some transform, some fuse. So it's a really a mess of ideas in the head. But this one was more like we had a different idea. Suman and I we always. Suman still lives in 90s. He thinks he's in 2020s, but he's not. He still lives in there. So we used to trade school stories quite a bit. And we always wanted to make one about first love, first that ninth grade was specifically what we were interested in, because it's the transformational year where you're going to 10th and now you're passing out of high school and all that stuff. But then we knew it wasn't something. We wanted a bigger canvas. We wanted a bigger texture, bigger thing to paint on. So it went from there to first love, first kiss, to first kill, which suddenly made it what? We started here and we go there. And Tipu killing somebody for the first time. And so we decided to go that route.
Also the world of Gulaabgunj. I mean, besides the school, the world of Gulaabgunj with this whole, it being an opium town, opium also lends this unique idea of, see, technically it's a drug, technically they're drug dealers, but they're also farmers.
Right.
So there is a fine, rural, innocent
Right.
mix thrown in. That's where the whole canvas formed.
I have to ask, do you guys geographically, where is Gulaabgunj? It's very mysterious in the show for me because we see license plates that suggest one way, and then people are coming and dropping in from Delhi that suggest another way.
Yeah, the Delhi plates are different.
Right.
But the Gulaabgunj nameplates are our nameplates.
Right.
We made our own nameplates.
Right.
And I think it's TLB?
TLB.
TL.
The nameplate says TLB.
Yeah, there is we usually have a lot of Easter eggs and inside jokes for us.
So TLB would be?
So TLB is the original concept of the story,
Acha.
where the idea was about people in the back, people somewhere in the back that you don't really see, but they have a story. And their story might be more interesting than yours. That was the idea. They're like the last benchers.
Okay. The last bench. I see.
So we wanted to call it, earlier we were calling last benchers. Rajkummar Rao, mechanic, somewhere mechanic is there. The boys, kids sitting in the back doing their own shit. So everybody, Dulquer, just a nice guy, family man, does his own thing. Adarsh, lost in the whole gang. He's not the main key player at all. So all of these are these slightly lesser seen people. So TLB was our working title.
I see.
For the show.
Yeah, that's why the number plates became TLB. And we deliberately kept it, it's a fictional town in a fictional state. That's why the number plates are fictional. And I can say it's in the heartland of India, probably somewhere in central to North India, going with the language.
Right.
So it's devoid of much accent.
Right.
It's devoid of any kind of a...
North central, I think.
Right.
Yeah,
Central.
central
More
north kind of
little
zone.
more
Heartland, Indian, Hindi-speaking heartland of
Just
India.
wanted the lushness of India.
Yeah.
Again, the story initially was set in our hometown. Most of the stories, including Stree, is set in where we grew up in Andhra.
Yes, Andhra.
So, but we realized that can be placed anywhere and made it very authentic, seep into the texture of the place.
Where did you shoot?
We shoot around Dehradun.
Dehradun.
Uttarakhand mainly.
Uttarakhand, that's the area. Yeah.
Right. Right. I find it fascinating because you guys obviously had written Stree, which had that small town structure, but directorially you guys have been identified as very urban filmmakers and you're poets of urban chaos. To see you in a much more laid back small town environment was a delight. Did you guys enjoy visually exploring a small town in this scale for the first time?
See, at the end of it, we are from small towns.
Right. Yeah.
And small town middle class is what is in the core of it, right? Even in The Family Man, we might look like we might be in urban filmmakers, come across, but all the trials and tribulations, all the stuff that the Shrikant Tiwari goes is what I've seen in my uncle, my father, how they deal with the kids, and it's the same stuff. You transplant them. So within The Family Man, even within Farzi, there's a lot of middle class in it. There's whole middle class angst in Farzi. So it's not even like we're making shows that are super urban. The only urban thing I can think of actually would be Gone in a way, because they're conversing half the time in English. We didn't care that time. Hindi or English didn't matter. We just went with the natural flow. But and Stree would be this very small town. Texturally, they're small town, but I feel most of these are middle class in nature.
Right.
Yeah,
How
and
crucial
also,
is-
but
yeah, go
even though if it's a small town thing, which we have, been involved in Stree as much as it is. And if you notice, you might notice that we shot it in a larger than life, like a cinema scope, 70 mm kind of a way. So it does, yes, the setting is a small town, but it shouldn't ideally come across as a small town simple film either. It's a larger
Yeah, the
than
idea
life.
was to make a larger than life story, getting away in contrast to The Family Man, which was extremely grounded on the roads, no frills, no lighting, almost like handheld, running with the people. This is anamorphic lenses, especially which wanted to shoot only in anamorphic, make it that cinemascope feeling to it, embrace all the flaws that comes with those lenses. So it's really, and we wanted to depart from the previous style.
Right.
Farzi was shot in a different way. So our excitement is also as filmmakers to present something visually different each time, as much as possible.
Right. Let's tell me this, socially or philosophically, when you guys had done 99, which was such a defining turn of the millennium film to see, and I recently revisited it, and for me it's a film about, the sort of very techie aspirations that were sort of, seeping into the Indian urban middle class, upper middle class. If you had to contextualize Guns and Gulaabs for how the country was, it's sort of a throwback to an innocent time that I think post-liberalization kind of was shifting. What are your thoughts about that time, and what sort of, do you see it as a more innocent time, let's say, for India?
Yeah,
do you see it like that?
Those were simpler times, and people were simpler, is what I would say now. But I'm also very aware that at any point, if you look back, roughly about 3 decades, it always feels like there were simpler times.
Correct.
So in 2050, there'll be a group of people like this sitting and talking. See, 2020, there were simpler times. There was
just
Twitter,
a mobile phone.
Twitter became X, and those such beautiful times.
Right.
God knows what will be happening in 2050.
Right.
So in that sense, at least the way we look back at it, people were simpler. The emotions were a little more straightforward. I feel like we talk about trolling today. There was no concept of trolling back then. And, and things were a little more, we tend to romanticize the past.
Yeah.
And that's how we always look at it. We forget the flaws of that period. And you mentioned liberalization, and that is why 1990 is very special as opposed to 2000. Because distinctively India became liberalized in the mid-90s, say around 93, 94-ish, when it started liberalizing. So there's a big jump. If you said a movie in 1990 versus 1999, there's a huge jump in how people, you start seeing foreign cars, you start seeing mobile phones, you start seeing people dressed in Western brands, versus in 90, you had to be really rich to have a foreign car, or even to buy Western clothes in that sense.
Right.
So it's a big difference, I think.
Right. And cinema started reflecting this also psychologically, what he's saying, right? The pre-90s films, so many, we still had rural stories around.
Yes.
You're still, chasing after revenge against the landlord, something like that. And then those stories drastically shift and become about NRI families or whatever, right?
Mid-90s is the birth of mostly foreign locations.
Correct, yeah.
Pre that, you would go to the foreign location for a song.
Only for a song.
One song you shoot there, but the story is set in either Bombay or Delhi or wherever you are, but definitely not a foreign country.
Yeah, in 90s, early 90s or 80s, we used to dream, at least the protagonist used to dream of dancing in a foreign country.
Switzerland usually, because the snow-capped mountains.
Then
did you early move to the US? Was it anywhere fueled by movies in any sense? Or was it your careers as engineers that opened it up?
It was a preset path everybody was following.
Yeah.
And that's when we had to disrupt and break out of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it was a preset path.
If you're an engineer and if you're halfway good at it and you're good in your studies and get enough marks, the next goal would be to get a job in the US, correct?
Right.
That's what everybody was headed, just around the time of the turn of the century.
Right.
That was the holy grail for engineers. And that's exactly what we did.
Right.
And then once we're there is where we kind of took a step back
a few years
stopped that career.
Come out of that.
Right. You guys have obviously similar cinematic tastes, I guess, but I must ask, musically, how different are you guys in terms of the music that you listen to and you respond to? You mentioned the mixtapes back in the day. Were there common mixtapes that you guys would do together? Are you guys musically much in sync?
Our music, the songs that we are putting out, the last 30 songs we've made, we've always been in sync. We pretty much love the same. If we were to list the top 10, we would list almost the same top 10. Right. So that way we are.
And also, when it comes to the songs that we were listening, we're all fans of Ilayaraja, we're all fans of A.R. Rahman, and especially in the South, Ilayaraja was a huge phenomenon until A.R. Rahman came, and then A.R. Rahman became a huge phenomenon, right?
Yeah.
And of course, in Hindi had a slightly parallel set of music going around with Jatin Lalit and Nadeem Shravan, and there was a parallel universe going on. We were still getting used to that kind of a music, but for us, A.R. Rahman and Ilayaraja formed the core basis.
Yeah, that was the bigger influence, Ilayaraja and A.R. Rahman, and at the same time, you go to Beatles, starting off with Beatles onwards, of course, and a lot of these I was more into...
Boney M, ABBA.
those were the initial days, but later on it was really the alternative genres that were appealing
Like?
more than the pop. I mean, more than the pop, I'm just saying, more than specifics, more than the simple pop and rock. Like Cranberries and all these guys. At those days, I can quickly think of names. But those were influences. And my aunts, I've always been proud of the fact that I have like 2 Padma Shri aunts who are singers.
Right.
So that's the music that is in the family. So I'm glad they made me learn classical music as much, but I didn't really pursue it much. But they're happy that at least I'm making songs now.
Right. I've followed your filmography for a very long time. Like, one of the most fascinating aspects for your style that I like and how you guys put shows together is there's a lot of resonance already in the casting that you guys sometimes do. Like, when I see 99 and I see Cyrus and Kunal there, I'm already with them and I'm already in that time in a way. Like, growing up on television and watching Cyrus was already like a part of my mental architecture of how I related to the turn of the millennium times or something like that. When I saw Farzi, it struck me that how Amol Palekar represented a kind of, a very Nehruvian socialist India of the 70s, and Shahid, the guy from Badmash Company that I remember, he represented, a India that was hustling, and it was nice to sort of have them as the moral conflict in the show, aspirationally. Tell us about getting, Raj, obviously you guys have worked with. Gulshan feels like has always been in your movies, although he hasn't.
Yeah.
Tell us about getting these 2 specially on board and other casting decisions that went into...
No, like rightly pointed out, I forgot about the part about 99 that, we always wanted something off in the casting.
Right.
Whatever we had in power at that point. It's not like we had so many people at our disposal in this. But Cyrus and Vinod Khanna and Mahesh Manjrekar were the cooler coups for us to get these people in.
Right.
And Saif in Go Go Gone, or
Sendil and Shore in the City for that
Sendil in
matter,
Shore in
right?
City, or Vijay Sethupathi in
Yes.
Kalsi, or Samantha in Family Man, and Dulquer now, and Gulshan, of course. So we're really enjoying this casting process forever to try and give something that you don't expect in the same role. And even they are so excited to do that, something new. I mean, it's that. I think that's where it starts, right? You get the right cast going, and most of the characters will come to life more than what you think. Sometimes what's on paper, they bring much more to it.
Right. What is the first conversation with Dulquer and with Gulshan? Dulquer and Gulshan.
Dulquer mainly, poor guy, came in the last minute. We were already on location, ready to shoot, and our original casting didn't work out because of dates. And so we called Dulquer. I mean, I was thinking, why didn't we think of Dulquer before?
Who was that, like, originally? If you can share.
Are we supposed to share?
I don't know if you should name names like that,
Okay.
but it was written for a... It was not set in the... It was not a South Indian character
Okay.
at all. It was set for a...
Even though Dulquer is not, we didn't really treat him as a South Indian character in the film, but whatever he brings in, if you think of it, think of it. But otherwise, there are no traces beyond that. But once we thought of Dulquer, we said like, oh God, this is perfect. So we called him and he said, I can come, I'm on. So he had the toughest time, I'm sure, as an actor, to actually get into the, to do a lot of homework on the go. And he did very easily. I thought he was going to struggle. He just very easily.
He had the least amount... See, two deserters, he had the least amount of prep time. He had to hit the ground running. Like literally, we are starting shoot and now he has to... come on board and understand the character, discuss with us at length about how we want to do it and, figure out the character over the next few days. That's the one thing. And Hindi not being his main language. He knows Hindi very well. In fact, he's pretty good in Hindi. There's no doubt about it.
Yep.
But there's a difference if you grow up speaking Hindi all your life at home versus you just know Hindi.
He just had to be conscious of it, but he was flowing. He was just being there. It was a very interactive journey with Dulquer. Every day, every scene, we used to talk it out and do it, and then we tweak it, do it. It was pretty, and he's a very easy guy to work with, very sweet, happy guy.
Right.
Has enough energy to chill later also after the shoot.
Right.
And Gulshan, like you said, very aptly said, he belongs in our films.
Right.
And surprisingly, we haven't done enough with him. And it was, as soon as we thought Gulshan, we knew he was Atmaram. And Gulshan is Gulshan, being this guy saying that I don't know if I want to do something like this, Raj, and all. I mean, like, what? You have no clue what we have in our mind. Just come. And he's like, Arey, I'm doing this, I can't cancel that, this, that. I said, like, no, we had to actually force him to do the role. And because we knew he was going to ace it. And it was easy. The time he walked in, he's also like a method actor. He didn't take off his lenses or teeth, or he would just sit there uncomfortably throughout the shoot, even when he's not shooting, to be in it.
And he doesn't speak. The character
He
hardly
doesn't speak
speaks.
much.
Right?
And initially we had very few, even lesser lines. And he would just have the very...
You would just nod or grunt or laugh or something.
And we even thought of an uncharacteristic thin voiced laugh. It's not even like ha 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 gafa, you know. It's like ha, he goes like that. So it's all thought of, and even the knives. He used to send me research on. I wanted 4 cuts, and each cut had to make sense. So he used to send me biological ideas as to which jugular, of course, but what is it that you cut really? So a lot of questions back and forth and about the look and prep and all that. So
And this whole Rampuri knife, that idea was like, there's a sound it makes when you open it. You go cut, 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 cut. So that became the signature.
Right. Do you remember seeing the Rampuri knife in the Hindi movies of that time? It was such a common killing device.
Oh,
it is.
Right.
But I don't remember specifics, but I know that it existed, of course.
We've seen that. Yeah, except I wouldn't have known like it's called the Rampuri knife. And see, then at some point people graduated to the switchblade, where that guy comes like this and presses, and it opens. So our first instinct was to...
In Indian cinema, we never had the other one, right?
No, that's like a very kung fu.
Yeah, that we don't have.
Kung fu kind of a thing. Our knives were like, it was either this or, hey, press and it comes out. And that's like, oh my God, what a technology! The knife comes out like that.
Which is the dominant knife in like Telugu cinema and their villains.
I think there's the switchblade.
Switchblade only, yeah.
Switchblade had the stylishness of a cigarette, right? You pull it out and...
Yeah. Everybody loves to press that button and
Guys, tell me this, you guys transitioned so well onto OTT, and it sort of like becomes like second nature. It looks like, you guys were meant to do this. What has been the most enabling thing of long form filmmaking for you guys? I also asked this in the context of the last few Hindi features that you had done. There was criticism that this is trying to fit into a popular mold, that a lot of people who've enjoyed your earlier, more grainier, more grittier work would thought that, okay, these guys need not do this. And now that when you have given us The Family Man, you gave us Farzi, what has been the greatest joy of playing in this medium?
See, I mean, the long format inherently comes with one advantage, that you can explore a character or the world in and out, correct? If you think you can tell a story in 2 hours and you're limited by telling it in 2 hours, this one is offering you an opportunity to explore every aspect of it and take your time. You can do 6 episodes, you can do 8 episodes, you can do 10 episodes. At some point, you're saying, this is all the time I need. There is nobody saying it has to be this long. So that is a natural advantage of the long format versus the short format. It's the most obvious one. But besides that, there's a certain format that a feature film has to fit in, starting with casting. The movie has to open on a Friday. That means you have to get you need to get a star, you need to get certain things, you need to have certain elements in it, you have to have packageable elements, for example. You have to have songs for an Indian film. All these things, suddenly all these things went away in the long format thing. All you need to do is tell a good story and people will come and watch it.
With good actors.
There was no time restriction, as in you have to watch it on a Friday or you lost the battle. So that, I think, opened up creatively in a big way.
I think, long form is a haven for filmmaking and filmmakers, because now you can tell the story you want, you can tell the way you want, you can pick the actors you like, you can decide on the length, you can decide on the subplots, you can decide on the timing of it. You can go and pick a Telugu actor and put him in a Hindi thing, and entire India is a playground for you, for all the industries you can pick from. Extreme freedom in terms of storytelling, the way your ideal storytelling is what we are enjoying in this format. Of course, when we go back to the feature films next year, the idea is to take these learnings, and we don't have to stick to the same format. Like you said, we were not tempted to go into the format that people would want, like if you talk about a gentleman. A Gentleman in Our Heads is still a very quirky, fun tale, and it's our lives as an NRI,
Right.
where we're not glamorizing like a chopper kind of NRIs, where you get off a chopper or like expensive mansions.
The billionaire NRI.
Right.
Billionaire. We were talking about our guys, IT guy. That's how we would go to work and do it. So that's our life from there. Made it into what if our lives, NRI lives, came from Bollywood goons. It was that. It was a pulp fun popcorn film that we wanted to make with a really cool twist that we hadn't seen before. So for me, and I'm seeing the love for that film growing a lot. Like last time when we put out our anniversary thing, and we didn't realize, wow, it outdid Go Go Gone. I was like, wow, so there's so much in it. But yes, the trappings, the packaging makes it look like a typical fare or whatever, you have the trappings of songs and cool locales and stuff. So, but that was the idea. And if somebody says you have to do a romantic comedy, you're going to end up doing a self-referential, self-aware meta rom-com.
Right.
That's what happy ending is. And I still feel it's pretty funny that the fact that it's all very self-aware that I'm a rom-com. That's what we'll do for a rom-com, for a typical genre. So all these are good things we did. I'm glad we did them, learned from it. And of course, the day A Gentleman didn't work on a Friday or on a Saturday, the very next morning, the Saturday morning, I still remember pouring rains and walking at the, this high, 1 foot high water, an umbrella to a barista at a coffee day, sat down, opened and wrote O Sri Kalana. So where I'm like, hey, I'm going to take the reins back. We're going to do it ourselves. We're going to produce it ourselves. We're going to make a film just the way we want to. So why not go back? So all these are great learnings in the journey. Yeah.
Is a feature cooking between the two of you?
Sorry?
Is a feature film cooking right now?
Yes.
Yeah.
We are planning to put out a feature film.
We have 2 feature films working on right now.
Right. I wonder, because you guys bring so much of India and it pours into your stories, and I feel that even for the stories you've said outside, right? I wonder when you are doing something, let's say, which is a spin-off of a Mothership series that emerges out of the US, one of my apprehensions is that we lose the texture because it has to fit and look like an international series in the traditional sense of it. And we got a taste of, because we saw what the original now looks like. Right. I have a feeling that it has to fit into that. Is that a pressure, or will it still be a very Indian show? I'm talking about the Siddle spin-off that you guys are working on.
It is a very Indian series. Yes, it needs to fit into the universe of the original, the Mothership show, but just in the universe. But we were very clear back then, even when we had met the Russo brothers, and even they were very clear that obviously we're not asking you to make a film that looks like the American show or feels like the American show, right? The reason we are coming on board, as opposed to saying another American filmmaker coming on board, is that we want it to be as Indian as possible in nature and as rooted and as local in nature.
So yeah, we went for an action series, but in our style, we just wanted to keep it Indian, keep it something fresh, something.
So the phones and the traffic and all of it will pour in. We can expect that to pour into.
Yeah, I'm sure pagers will come in and all that.
Yeah, pages are a very Indian spy thing to do. Because when I saw Family Man season 1, it was your most socio-politically involved stuff that you guys have done. It was addressing pretty much everything that was happening politically at the country at the time, in a more objective way than I would expect from some directors. Like, you guys had a more even view of it. That space has kind of dropped off in OTT these days. We don't see full-fronted socio-political storytelling happening. Stories have become more about personal stories. Like, I'll give an example. Like, Gulaabgunj has to be set in a Gulaabgunj, right? Like, it's not, I know even it's difficult to even make it specific about a town. I don't know if that's the reason you guys made it in a fictional town, but I'm just saying, like, in general. Does that affect your work? You guys have second seasons of stuff in the work. Farzi did address demonetization, but not in a way that a lot of people would expect it to be, in a critical sense, or in any sense that, in a deeper sense. As filmmakers, I know this is also another part you guys would have liked to explore. Do you think the space for socio-political storytelling has shrunk on OTT right now?
I would, from our point of view, as filmmakers, we wanted to make each time a different subject. Like in The Family Man lends itself to socio-political commentary, and that's good. So we got that there going. Farzi is about middle class, and that's good. It's got there. And Guns and Gulaabs is our stream of consciousness, free-handed, do whatever the hell you want and make it fun kind of space, which we also enjoy a lot. So I don't think we are looking to do a specific thing, or we are yearning to say, I need to put this thought across. It's really more about being filmmakers.
Or that it's a compromise, for at least for us. Like, regardless of what else was happening, Guns and Gulaabs would have been this.
Like, we'd be as excited to do Guns and Gulaabs as Family Man, for example. So, I think it comes from the fact that we're audience turned filmmakers, is all we used to say. We're not even film school students, we're like audience turned filmmakers. We want to see all kinds of cinema.
Right.
So that's where I think our focus is on. So right now I'm not missing anything, like in horror comedy,
Sure enough.
you know, to this, to that. Love to do a love story next. So it's more of really just expanding and pushing, challenging ourselves, versus having something to, like a specific idea or a reason why we need to make only this film.